This was on the arm of Caleb Williams, the receivers. Colston Loveland is,
that's what I was going to say is I look in some of this with the passing attack, and Rome Odunze came back in this game after missing a substantial amount of time. DJ Moore's always been interesting in terms of the usage case there. In so many ways, Colston Loveland seems to have morphed into their number one receiving option. And you saw it both in the production in this game when you look at what he was able to do, 137 yards, the first rookie tight end to have 8 receptions and 100 more receiving yards in a playoff game in NFL history, but also in the attention paid to him. You saw windows opening up because the defense was so concerned about where Loveland was going. So Ben Johnson really building this offense early in his likeness, but he seems to be the key for them in the passing game now.
Without question. Odunze came back after missing 5 games with a foot, but that had opened the door for a Luther Burden, a rookie wide receiver who had made an impact. Now he was in the rotation. So there's another receiver in the rotation. And
Luther Burden, by the way, what a rough one for him on one of the 4th down plays that was kind of the focus of this game here. Completely confused before the snap, runs the wrong route. Caleb Williams upset with him throwing a pick on 4th down. Luther Burden didn't cover himself in glory on that day, but no doubt an important part of this offense still.
Yeah. He ended up with one more target than Odunze, who's still kind of working himself back. But one of the things that helped, because Colston ran a lot of the crossing routes, is the time Caleb Williams had. Again, after Micah Parsons got hurt, and he got hurt in, I believe it was week 9, or maybe week 12, whatever it was. After he got hurt, the Packers had 3 total sacks. That was it. And again, as I said, gave up 170 yards. But with a 4-man rush, they could not get pressure. Rashawn Gary, who had been their pass rusher before Micah got there, he had 7.5 sacks coming into the game, but all 7 sacks were in the first 7 games while Micah Parsons was on the field. So they could not get a 4-man rush, and they kept doing it, Mike. They kept rushing 4. Caleb Williams had time, and when the time started running out, he would roll out and get free, and it gave time to the Bear receivers to really develop the routes, and you just can't ask a back 7 to cover for 4, 5, 6 seconds.
So we have to get to their opponent here soon, but I want to touch on the coaching element of this that kind of falls into that, because after this game and this morning, we got the report from Adam Schefter that the Packers are expected to try and work out a deal in the coming days to keep LaFleur in Green Bay. They hadn't signed his extension yet, and there were a lot of people that wondered if last night's game was going to be a referendum on his future if they couldn't get over the hump there. You mentioned some of the issues and mistakes you saw losing out in the second half of this one. Let's start with Matt LaFleur first. Do you think it's the right move for the Green Bay Packers to retain him as head coach?
And real quick, Micah Parsons was hurt in week 15. So the games after that, they didn't do much defensively. You know, Mike, it's one of those things where if you're going to get rid of him, who you going to get, right? Now, there are obviously some coaches available. Does this job become the number one job for a guy like John Harbaugh, right? Because the best jobs available then would most likely be Baltimore and Green Bay. So Harbaugh is kind of being put with the Giants right now. Would the Packer job all of a sudden be that number one job for a guy like John Harbaugh? Again, the Packers don't want LaFleur to go in the next season as a lame duck coach. LaFleur doesn't want to go in with a lame duck coach. I don't think you pull the plug on him, quite honestly.
If I could guarantee you John Harbaugh takes the job, would you make the switch then?
Ooh. Now, with John Harbaugh, he's not an offensive or defensive play caller. Then it's all going to be on who he gets as an offensive coordinator. Matt LaFleur calls the plays, so now you're dependent on the offensive play caller. But you give me those choices, I'm probably taking Harbaugh.
I guess you can make an argument for it. I think keeping LaFleur probably the right move. We have to be real quick on this because we do need to talk about the Rams. Ben Johnson and the way he responded after the game, where you saw a very icy, quick handshake with Matt LaFleur. You saw in the locker room the footage they put out from the team of him saying, F the Packers, I hate those guys. Do you think he's going to look back and have regrets about how he handled this moment, his first playoff win as a head coach?
He may, but as a player, you love it, right? I mean, and that's the whole idea of this, is to get the players to buy into what the coach is selling. And the coach is selling emotion. The coach is selling hate in the division, and the team is buying it. And look at how well the team has done. All this talk about what Ben Johnson does doesn't affect me. Hell, I had Buddy Ryan. You're not going to affect me with Ben Johnson barely giving a handshake and cussing out the opposing teams. I had Buddy Ryan. Google him to see some of the things that he did. So that it does not really concern me. Personally, will Ben Johnson, maybe as he gets to be a more veteran head coach, he may.
Yeah, I think that is one of those things we kind of see coaches age out of. And I think part of it can be fun in these rivalries. It's such a small fraternity. I think these guys eventually realize, hey, I might need this guy or might work with this guy. And so alienating them might be not the best thing for me business-wise. See Nick Sirianni, who, for Philly fans wondering why it's cute when Ben Johnson does it, it's because he calls the plays and calls them really well, and we have a tangible thing to point to as to what he does. We will get to Nick Sirianni's conversation in just a little bit. But for the Chicago Bears now, as they get set to look in the divisional round, their opponent will be the Los Angeles Rams, who, man, oh man, made it a lot more difficult than it needed to be. Credit to the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young for really making this a game. The Rams go ahead late to win 34-31. Matthew Stafford able to drive them down and get it done when it matters the most. Dealing with a sprained index finger now, coming off this game, hitting it off a helmet here. Why were the Carolina Panthers able to make such a game out of this again against this Rams team? And should we be concerned about Los Angeles based off these outcomes?
Well, I'd be concerned about the Rams defense, not so much the Rams offense putting up 34, but the Rams defense has kind of disappeared the last few weeks of the season. That's where my concern would be. So now they get after the passer again. Once Green Bay lost Micah Parsons, they get after the passer better than the Green Bay Packers do. But that's where the concern would be. It would definitely be on the defensive side of the ball. Matthew Stafford, like you said, beat up a little bit in this one, but offensively, I mean, my God, as long as you have Puka Nacua, good Lord, 18 targets, they destroyed the middle of the field. I mean, you got to have game plan on these guys. They love the middle of the field, love it. And they just destroy defenses in the middle of the field, and they certainly did it to Carolina. But when you have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams, the two of them combined for 31 targets. 31 targets of the 42 passes that Matthew Stafford threw.
Yeah, it's a pretty siphoned down attack. I thought some of the rust for Devontae Adams in the first half kind of contributed to this. The thing I kept writing down as the first half came to a close and the Rams had a chance coming off a muffed punt to put the game away. They miss it on fourth down, under 2 minutes left. And then the Panthers immediately go down and score. It's this massive swing in the game. They couldn't land the knockout blow. Right. Missed throws by Matthew Stafford, him and Devontae Adams, maybe after that delay still having to work themselves back. But then defensively, Dad, this is all I'll say, especially looking ahead to the Chicago Bears, is Bryce Young being able to evade pressure and make plays with his legs and his arm. Man, oh man, if Bryce Young is having that kind of luck, that's dangerous against Caleb Williams. Quentin Lake was back and got tested a lot against Coker in the slot. Even on the outside, they had some issues going up against Hetero and McMillan. And so you copy and paste the Bears offense over a top of that against this defense. And if that rush doesn't get home, it could get real scary for the Rams.
I'll tell you what, I pulled my hair out a lot this year calling games, the games I called and certainly other games. And we're in the era of a mobile quarterback. The ability and the times that quarterbacks break the pocket blows to the outside, blows my mind. Now, again, when, to make sure you have at least a disciplined enough rush to keep him in, you don't want to take away too much from the rush. But you got to understand you can't let the quarterback, especially one like Caleb Williams who makes plays, out of the pocket. That play that he made to Odunze when he rolled left, that was Rashawn Gary. the right defensive end. He went inside enough on his pass rush to give Caleb the escape to the outside. I'm up in the booth going, what the hell are you doing? Why are you giving these quarterbacks the ability and the extra time to roll out? And it's going to happen sometimes, I get it, but it happens way more than it should. And the Rams had better. I mean, all you got to do is watch the film to see what Caleb Williams can do to say, we have to make him step up, not get outside.
Yeah, and I think that's easier said than done with Caleb Williams. And to your point, the Rams' defensive front has made their living being fast and aggressive up front, turning all those rushers loose and trying to let them go and affect the quarterback. And they were able to a lot, but when they weren't, man, it got ugly. And that's the part that scares me as we look ahead for the Rams and this particular opponent they're getting ready to face. We got plenty more opponents to get to as we roll along here looking at Wild Card Weekend. Coming up next, how Josh Allen and the Bills went out here and made good on the start through their potentially big playoff run. Next on Golic and Golic. Welcome back, and GG's to the AFC Wild Card Weekend here. When's the last time you saw a 10-yard quarterback sneak? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills have become the tush-push masters in their own right. They get the Bills their go-ahead score. The defense shuts the door on Trevor Lawrence late after this interception tripped by Trey White, as we see the exchange of pleasantries between two teams rolling in with space alien quarterbacks and red-hot vibes. But the Bills were able to walk out with the win. And Josh Allen, Dad, felt like a real comeback with your shield or on it type of performance from a guy we know playing banged up right now, went out and put his body on the line. We sometimes unfairly ask quarterbacks to go out here and shoulder the load in that way, lift the team beyond their means. Josh Allen seems to really be doing that right now, is he not?
Well, he has to. He has to, right? The receiving core is okay, right? Not great. Khalil Shakir had by far he had 12 targets and 12 receptions in the game. Next closest was 3 receptions. The running game, James Cook is an excellent rusher. But Josh Allen has to put the cape on. If this team is going to get to the Super Bowl and win it, Josh Allen has to play at an MVP level, which we know he can. And by the way, that quarterback sneak, that was, as you well know, as a former old lineman, that was O'Cyrus Torrence. O'Cyrus Torrence basically carried Josh Allen that entire way on that quarterback sneak. Torrence should have got the stats for that, quite honestly. That was amazing. But Josh Allen is going to have to do that. He's going to get bumps and bruises, and I mean, he got knocked around, boy. When he was bent over his knee that one time, I thought, oh God, you know, that if one thing, if he plays hurt, but another thing, if you play hurt with a knee, that's going to affect his running. But they go how he goes. We know that they give up rushing yards, and why Jacksonville stopped running the ball, I'll never know. I will not understand that whatsoever. The Bills' deficiency is run defense. Jacksonville was running all over them and basically stopped. What the hell are you doing?
Made no sense. A real struggle. They finished with 154 yards on the day. They averaged 6.7 yards per carry.
Yes.
Like the point you made about the Bills rushing attack, we had built this matchup, right, as the Bills' number 1 ranked rush offense against the Jags' number 1 ranked rush defense. Advantage Jags rush defense.
Yes.
Like the second longest run of the day was Josh Allen's 10-yard QB sneak. Only him and James Cook had carries in that game, and neither averaged over 3.2 yards per carry. So, like, the Jags had that and appeared to let it go.
Yep.
Credit to Sean McDermott, that defense. Some guys in the secondary stood up. I thought Trey White ended up making some plays that helped impact the game, including that final one there. This seems like the one where the Jags, for all the ground they made this year, and Liam Cohen and company deserve a lot of credit, are probably going to be kicking themselves in terms of not being stubborn and going out and finishing the game where they were, I think, still the more complete team. They just didn't have a quarterback go God mode.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, a 14-14 fourth quarter, 28 points going in the fourth quarter. These games were absolutely amazing. But Jacksonville, I mean, the arrow is up on them, but still they hit a wall when they make it to the playoffs. They got to get over that next hump. So let's see in year 2 if Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence still have that magic together, or if enough teams got enough film on it to know a Liam Cohen offense, and let's see what effect that has.
Unfortunately, we won't have time to break down every minute detail of the comments made by Lynn Jones-Turpin from the Jacksonville Free Press after the game, congratulating Liam Cohen on a great season in a way that has become a great source of controversy for a lot of our brothers and sisters in sports media. I'll just say this. Is it the time and place for that? Probably not. Is it the worst thing that's ever happened? No. Also definitely not here. Maybe just have these discussions inside the house and not on the timeline, and things will probably be a lot less hotly contested. You know who might have some opinions on this? Our buddy, tried and true journalist Stan Verrett. You can check him out on Countdown Live, presented by Prime, right after our show, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Golic here on your screens. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. Excited to talk to former Wolverines tight end Jake Butt here in just a second. Because, Dad, we had an interesting weekend heading into the NFL weekend, courtesy of the college football playoff semifinal games. A battle for the ages as Ole Miss and Miami duked it out here. We talked last Friday about the heroics of Trinidad Chambliss, who's still trying to get that extra year of eligibility. Right. And then Friday night happened. Because we thought, oh, hey, Miami coming through the gauntlet that they had. Mario Cristobal's built a bully on both lines of scrimmage. Big and bad. Carson Beck made the plays unnecessary. Then the Indiana Hoosiers happened. And Curt Cignetti and them boys rolled into the Peach Bowl, surrounded by Hoosier fans, the largest living alumni base, as we have now heard ad nauseum. 800,000 strong Hoosier alums packed it down in Atlanta to watch their team from play one completely undress the Oregon Ducks. Pons takes the first interception to the crib, and after that, Fernando Mendoza and the offense are pinpoint accurate and deadly. The defense was physical and knocked Dante Moore off his perch. This was as complete and thorough a beating as we'd seen all season long. And right now, the opening line for the championship game, Miami started as about a touchdown dog. I think it's moved even more in favor of Indiana. This team truly feels like they're unstoppable right now.
Listen, we're in a new era of college football, right? There's no way you would get a turnaround like this in college football under the old system without NIL and without the portal, right? Because understand, even this year, they're dominant, and it's going to be only Miami fans, family, and friends that pick them in this game. Everybody else is going to go with Indiana. But even last year, when Indiana made the 12-team playoff, they basically had a James Madison team, right? And they made the playoff. This really is a feather in a cap, not only obviously of players executing on the field, because at the end of the day, those players have to do it, but the coaching job that Curt Cignetti and his assistants are doing is unreal. This is one of the most monstrous 2-year turnarounds we've seen in any sport.
Yeah, it feels like we're beating a dead horse, heaping praise on it, but there just really isn't a comparison for a lot of what we're seeing right now with the Hoosiers. So for more on how we put this into context, both historically for the Hoosiers now and what this can mean for the Big Ten at large going forward, Jake Butt, kind enough to join us now, former Wolverines tight end, Big Ten Network analyst, the co-host of The Blueprint, wherever you get your podcast, doing a great job covering Michigan football. And here today, talk about Big Ten versus the world. Jake, what was your first thought once the floodgates started to open for Indiana against the Oregon Ducks on Friday night?
I think, my wife and I were sitting on the couch together, and we were experiencing joy that, it honestly rivaled when Michigan won their national title. I think we're all just amazed and in awe seeing this. When Cignetti took over Indiana, this was the losingest program in college football history. The most wins this team has ever had in consecutive seasons, add up wins in consecutive seasons, was 16. They have a chance to go 16-0 if they finish the job Monday night and beat Miami. 16 wins in one season. You can't beat a dead horse when it comes to this story. It is the greatest turnaround that we have seen in all of sports history. If this was a movie script that you were selling to a big studio, I think they'd turn it down. They would say, no, this is just too unbelievable. But we're watching it with our own two eyes. It is It's remarkable. And yet I do think this Miami team, this is going to be the biggest test for the Hoosiers all season long. I mean, this is a physical, violent football team. They match up well with Indiana. I do not expect to see a blowout like what we saw Indiana do to Oregon and Alabama. I expect this to be a good game, but leading up to it, my goodness, what more can we say about the Hoosiers?
It's amazing. There seems to have been a movie script, and the movie was called Hoosiers, about the basketball team. Unprecedented. What makes them so good?
They are, if you watch them on film in all three phases, at the line of scrimmage, in the secondary, their quarterback, whether it's the first quarter or the last, this is the best coached football team in all of college football. I mean, this is a coach's dream. When you just watch the Indiana Hoosiers play, this is every coach's dream. They play hard. They play technically and fundamentally sound. They do not take a snap off. Their backside receiver on an outside zone is straining to block his corner, even though it has no significance on the play. But I think most of all, they don't beat themselves. And a lot has been made about the age of their roster, their transfer portal strategy, how they prioritize experienced players. Production over potential is the big Cignetti phrase. They do not beat themselves. So it's this marriage and recipe of Cignetti, the two coordinators, all the position coaches. This is high-level coaching and schematics, but they have veteran, experienced players, intelligent players that can receive that coaching and then go execute it and put it on tape. I think it catches teams off guard at times. It's just so remarkable how they consistently seem to be in the right position at the right time with the right technique, and then they take advantage and execute at the highest level. Find a drop on film. Good luck finding a drop by these receivers on film. Not only do they not drop the ball, their contested catch rate is up there with the best of them in college football. It's just, they're nearly perfect. And Cignetti, I think when the camera pans down to him and he looks pissed off down on the sideline in a blowout, it's because Cignetti expects perfection. And I think that roster and staff believes that they can be perfect. It's unheard of.
And he certainly got them close to just that, like you mentioned, the opportunity for 16-0 on the table as we head into the national title game. Putting a bow on the Duck season, because experience is kind of the conversation surrounding Dante Moore and the decision he's got to make. We know there was news today in the portal that Dylan Raiola, it sounds like, committed to the Oregon Ducks for quarterback next year. So one would assume that means Dante Moore's leaving, but did that game affect any of how you saw the decision that he has in front of him?
It was a tough game. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was a tough game. But one game doesn't define any quarterback's career. And, you know, you'd like to see a guy like Dante Moore rise up and play the best game of his season against Indiana. But I think the context here matters. You know, they were down. They went from having the deepest running back room in college football to basically one healthy running back. Offensive line had been beat up. Both their coordinators had accepted head coaching jobs at Kentucky and Cal. So both those coordinators are trying to manage the transfer portal at their next schools while also trying to game plan for Indiana. None of that is putting your best foot forward to prepare for an Indiana team that requires your best. And certainly that Dante didn't play his best. There's still a lot to love about Dante Moore. He's put far more good out on tape than he has bad. I think maybe the big takeaway from that game is there was a debate. I heard Todd McShay say that he would have taken Dante Moore over Fernando Mendoza. I think kind of now that puts that to bed, that Mendoza would be the likely number one overall pick in next year's draft, but Dante Moore's still a first-round pick.
So national title game, listen, we know Miami can win because, you know, anything can happen on a football field, but what do they have to do to win?
You know, I think when I look at Miami play, that is a physical and violent football team. I mean, they don't just try to tackle you. They want to run through you. They want to bloody your lip. They want to beat you up for 4 quarters and see if you're willing to stand there toe-to-toe and fight with them for 60 minutes. And I think the key for Miami is that violence needs to turn into turnovers, or it needs to force Indiana to make uncharacteristic mistakes because, like I said, they don't make many mistakes at all. But if you hit Mendoza, maybe if you hit these wide receivers, that will lead to drops or errors or turnovers. And then from there, Carson Beck needs to play very clean football. When you look at when Miami's lost, it's because Beck has been extremely sloppy. And I think what we've seen down the stretch of this season is the offensive game planning for Miami has been to kind of remove the chance for Carson Beck to lose you the game. It's very conservative. They want to run the ball, a lot of wide receiver screens, very simple reads for Carson Beck. But what we know with the Hoosiers is they're going to force quarterbacks into errors and take advantage with turnovers. Carson Beck cannot do that. And I think the big test, and this is just football 101, which team wins at the line of scrimmage? Miami is outstanding. They're built inside out. The trenches on both sides of the ball are some of the best you'll find in college football. It's a fun matchup in the sense that you look at Miami's offensive line, that is a big physical unit. Indiana is more about speed and finesse. They have a ton of defensive line movement. So I think Miami needs to win the battle at the line of scrimmage to ultimately win this game.
Jake, last one quick before we let you go. Third year in a row where the SEC won't play for the title, potentially third year in a row where the Big Ten could win it. Does this, if Indiana seals the deal, officially seal the changing of the guard now in terms of how the power is structured in college football?
Well, I don't know how much my answer will carry weight because I'm a Big Ten guy. I've felt this is the case anyways. It's the Big Ten's time. There's an ebb and flow. I'll be honest with you. When I was playing back, from 2010 to 2020 and even in the early 2000s, the SEC did dominate it. Absolutely. And now this conversation is starting to really take hold, and it's the truth. With NIL being allowed for everybody in college football, there's a talent disbursement. It's created more parity, and it's undeniable to see the Big Ten's success. If it is Indiana, 3 straight national championships, look at the SEC's bowl record, compare that to the Big Ten's bowl record. At this point, it's undeniable. I just don't want to hear it next year. Let's not forget this next year when someone's trying to sell me that 7 or 8 SEC teams deserve to be in the 12-team playoff. Yeah. I'll have no time for that.
Yeah, I think that'll be the real key to see if it does carry over then. In the meantime, check out plenty of Jake's great work again over the Big Ten Network and the Blueprint, wherever you get your podcast. Always appreciate the time, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate it.
Mike, there's one note on Cignetti that I don't know if people understand. He started his head coaching career in 2011. He was a head coach at IUP, Elon, James Madison, before he took over for Indiana last year. You know what his last assistant coaching job was? 2007 to 2010 at Alabama under Nick Saban. So you wonder how much Nick Saban has rubbed off on this guy.
Oh, I think the answer is a lot. They showed the pictures of him and Greg McElroy on that first title team for Saban in 2009, and I think you see so much of the isms show up in the way that Kurt handles his business. It's awesome to watch, and it'll be great to watch come national title time here. Let's graduate to the pros, though. We still got more wild card action to uncover, and the game that we saw between the Eagles and 49ers may have been the most damning result of the weekend. A beat-up 49ers team who went into this contest, as we know, injured in so many ways on defense. No Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa. Offensively, they hadn't had Brandon Ayuk the whole year. They lose George Kittle, their star tight end, to a ruptured Achilles in the midst of this game and still go out and beat a talented Eagles team that, albeit didn't have Lane Johnson, was banged up in their own right this year. But who's to blame on the Philadelphia side for this, Dad? We've seen more conversation about Kevin Patullo since last night. Nick Sirianni's job's been called into question. Jalen Hurts and how much of this he should shoulder. The diva wide receiver behavior from A.J. Brown. Where do you lay this, or who do you lay this at the feet of?
Well, I mean, listen, obviously there's multiple people that are involved in this. I mean, you have a Jalen Hurts in the first 3 drives going 11 for 14 and the rest of the game going 9 of 21. You have Kevin Patullo really in the plays he called. And before I even mention that, let's also understand Jalen Hurts is what it is, 6th year, I think, 5th or 6th year. And the amount of coordinators that he has had, he's in his 6th year, Doug Peterson, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, Kellen Moore, Kevin Patullo. I mean, there's no continuity at all. So there's Nick Sirianni, does he take over the offense? There's Kevin Patullo, and we've so much heard of the offensive scheme for the Eagles. And, I'm not going to get into the weeds of the formations that they have, but just, so much of it, they have 2 receivers on one side, 2 receivers on another side, and run a variation of routes off of that, right? They don't do a lot of motion. And you look at the 2 offenses in this game, a Kyle Shanahan offense and a Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni offense. The difference is staggering of what Kyle Shanahan does with motion and alignment, A, to free up his guys, B, to learn coverage of what the defense is going to do, and then obviously execution. Jalen Hurts got under center 7 times in the second half. All 7 plays were runs. Hell, are you kidding me? Everybody picks this up. Everybody sees what's going on. And last year was one thing when you had a 2,000-yard rusher and the best O-line in the game. This year's another when you don't have anywhere near the number 1 rushing team and your O-line has been battered up and you lost your left player in Lane Johnson. So, lack of continuity of play caller, lack of imagination on offense, play calling, execution, A.J. Brown dropping a couple of passes. There's enough blame for enough people to look in the mirror.
There is. I think Kevin Patullo will be the one to pay for it, though.
Without
this
question.
Is just, to me, the indictment of the process. If you're Nick Sirianni, this team is too talented and your window too wide for you to be not going out and doing a wide search for the best offensive coordinator every year. It is admirable to want to promote the people that have stood by you internally for the job that they have done, but not at the expense of this team that needs help. Like, to your point, when it's not painfully easy, when the offensive line's not a battering ram, Jalen Hurts is an accomplished but limited quarterback. The guy cannot throw over the middle consistently enough. The concepts are overly simple, and whether you believe LaShawn McCoy, that's the chicken or the egg debate, rests on Jalen Hurts not being able to execute that, or if it's the offensive coordinator's inability to do it. Either way, we've seen this offense look a lot better, and in this game, it was laid bare. On one side, you had Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff maximizing the parts that they had around a team that was nowhere near their best in terms of who they'd lost for injury. And on the other side, you had Nick Sirianni and his group of coaches that let so much talent on the field seemingly go unutilized or underutilized in a way that now has them going home and is going to demand major changes. I don't think it's going to cost Nick Sirianni his job. They're not going to move on from Jalen Hurts. But them now, from every year in and year out, the offensive coordinator position and how they go about finding, acquiring, and putting them in position to support their quarterback in this team is going to be line item number 1 for Nick Sirianni, and it was nowhere more apparent than it was this weekend. So certainly an ugly, ugly loss for Philadelphia with a lot of the boo birds out there. We'll have time to talk about the 49ers, who are an incredibly tough, gritty team, deserve a ton of credit. But if they're built for a long playoff run, that much I don't know based on, yet again, losing George Kittle. And,
gosh.
If the stories about him draining a bottle of tequila in the locker room, courtesy of ownership, are true that we saw reported in that game, he's even more of a legend than we already thought. We wish him a speedy recovery and hope he gets the chance to go out on his own terms. Coming up next, though, we keep it moving along here. The New England Patriots, did they finally beat a good team? We'll answer that question next. You're on Golic and Golic. You thought today was good? Just wait till tomorrow. Jeff Saturday, get lost in those baby blue eyes, going to stop by and talk to us about his experience as a Super Bowl champion, as an NFL head coach, as we wind through the coaching carousel and get ready for the divisional round coming up. Don't miss it tomorrow at 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern right here on FanDuel Sports Network. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here. The question has been asked so many times over the course of this season where the New England Patriots seems to reestablish control inside the AFC East. They win the division. They're the 2 seed in the playoffs. But as was oft pointed out, only beat one team with a record above 500. They had a chance to add to that and did this weekend with a 16-3 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. A defensive battle that really only gave way for this. The touchdown to Hunter Henry, deftly delivered by Drake May, before the defense shut the door again on a day where Justin Herbert just beat up one after another, 6 sacks on the day, and ultimately the knockout blow. So, Dad, based on what we knew about the Patriots, the criticisms coming in, how much of those doubters did they silence with the way that they beat the Chargers this weekend?
Listen, you had to silence them, right? And they don't care what people are saying because they're in the playoffs and they won their first round. They're moving on. They're like their coach, right? They are a solid football team that plays with aggression and plays smart football. I mean, they are taking after Mike Vrabel. And the defense, now the offensive line we've talked about all year for the Chargers, losing Rashawn Slater before the season started, losing Joe Alt during the season. New England had 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits in this game. Zion Johnson, the left guard for the Chargers, struggling in this one as Milton Williams, the pickup from the Eagles in the offseason. This defense took a hit, especially against a run when Williams missed some time, but he is back and he is proven to be a monster on the interior because quite honestly, the Chargers defense didn't play bad. They only gave up 16 points in this game. They had 5 sacks of their own. But the Chargers offense, which seemingly has power with McConkey, with Keenan Miller, with Quentin Johnston, with Oronde Gadsden, the rookie tight end who had come on during the year, but they just can't protect Herbert. Herbert just got the absolute snot kicked out of him.
Yeah, they have some soul searching to do along the interior. Like, those are the guys they did bring in to start. Down the starting tackle, sure, but those guys on the inside struggle mightily, and I think there's going to have to be some real roster reflection. The other one, Dad, it seems like pretty expeditiously we've gotten to the end of the Greg Roman life cycle. Like, I cannot imagine he's back for another season as the offensive coordinator for the team. Just to your point, not enough answers when the personnel changes and they needed to do different things, and certainly not enough in the way to help mitigate the damage to your quarterback, Justin Herbert, who I've seen people make the Andrew Luck comparisons. I have no idea what's on Justin's heart, but he's taken a beating in a way that made me just thankful he walked off the field under his own power, because for a while during that, with the level of hits he was taking, that seemed even like it was going to be in question.
Yeah, we've already seen coordinators let go of teams that didn't make the playoffs. I do think, too, that we've talked about that will also be let go. Kevin Patullo from the Eagles and Greg Roman from the Chargers, I do think will be gone. But the Patriots, I mean, listen, they're playing some ball. And now they wait and see who wins tonight. They take on either Pittsburgh or Houston. We know that the other game's already set, Bills and Denver. By the way, that's a game Ryan Radke and I have in Denver. So really, really looking forward to that. But Patriots have to wait and see who they're going to get. But again, with a guy who's going to, challenge Matthew Stafford for the MVP leading the way in a tough defense and kind of an open AFC, who knows?
Yeah, again, I don't think they went out there and dominated in the way they probably should.
No.
Offensively, like seeing Drake May get sacked 5 times in that game, hold on to the ball a lot. His legs, the difference in the game, like this tells you everything you need to know about how the New England Patriots won this game. Drake May was your leading rusher, and your running back, Ramondre Stevenson, was your leading receiver. This game was played close to the vest. It was a rock fight in every sense of the word, and that might be able to operate against the two teams that you just mentioned. Like, yes, I worry about Drake May's safety a lot more against the Houston Texans, but neither of those teams offensively seem built to push them in a way that would make them really uncomfortable. So we can keep asking this question, like, have the Patriots beat anyone good? Or we can just accept the reality that there's not a world ender in the AFC this year, and that they're going to have plenty of opportunities in these games because their defense is good enough, and no opposing offense, I think, can run them out of the building on this side of the bracket in football. So we'll wait and see what that future looks like as the Patriots are on that never-ending quest to beat a good team in the eyes of the public as they just continue to advance in the NFL playoffs and win their division and do all the things that we've asked of them there. Coming up next, though, let's put a bow on round 1 of the wild card weekend before we get to the Monday night action here. Who upped their stock the most? Next on Golic and Golic. Back for hour number 2 here on Golic and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. Off a busy wild card weekend in the NFL. Andrew Siciliano, voice of the Cleveland Browns on radio, going to join us here in 10 or so minutes. Talk about their place in the ever-changing landscape of the offseason coaching carousel in the NFL. Rumors about interest with John Harbaugh there. That's apparently mutual in a way that defies logic for me, but I'll let Andrew present us the unbiased sell of what kind of job the Cleveland Browns are in 2026 as we approach what they hope is a new era full of picks, a great draft class that they're trying to build off of, and certainly a phenomenal defense. Before we get to that, let's get you caught up on what you missed so far in the day. Our 3-point stands, 3 big stories around the sport. The first comes from college football. Dylan Raiola, the former Nebraska quarterback, has officially committed to the Oregon Ducks, he announced on social media on Monday. Remember, Raiola was at one time a 5-star commitment, committed to Georgia before spending his years at Nebraska. He started 23 games over 2 seasons with the Cornhuskers, and now in theory would succeed Dante Moore, the potential departing quarterback for the Ducks. Meanwhile, Matthew Stafford, the Rams quarterback, sustained a sprain to his index finger on his throwing hand, but is going to be good to go Sunday against the Bears, according to Sean McVay. He injured the finger in the Rams win over the Panthers, attempting to pass to Puka Nacua late in the first half. Stafford said after the game that finger got bent backwards, and so thankfully he will be available, but monitoring that this week will be of the utmost importance. And last but not least, how about this for golf? Brooks Koepka returning to the PGA Tour, the now many-time major champion, expected to make his return to the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines in La Jolla, California at the end of this month. He's also expected to play the Waste Management Open, the 5-time major champ, returning as part of the new returning member program, which could also potentially allow 3 other big-time LIV Golf stars to make their way back to the PGA Tour. And this is where this gets interesting, Dad. So for the last however many handful of years now here, LIV Golf came in with all of its money and its relaxed standards and less work and tried to woo away, and successfully did, some of the biggest names in the sport of golf. And they weren't really seen or heard from again because no one knew where to watch it. No one really wanted to. It didn't have the cachet or the well-worn experience that the PGA Tour did, despite some of its warts. Now, with the opportunity of some of these players' deals coming up, the LIV Tour appearing weaker than it has in a while, the PGA has come out and tried to make some interesting news. And Brian Rolap, who is the CEO of the PGA Tour, worked with the NFL for over 2 decades, has come out and I thought made a pretty interesting go at this, where this player tour returning member program, as you see right here, allows golfers who have been away at LIV for at least 2 years and who have won the Players Championship or one of the 4 majors between 2022 and 2025. Yeah. So you got to be good to come back over and pay a not insignificant financial penalty, but when you factor it into the money these guys got to go to LIV in the first place, it seems like a drop in the bucket. Is this good business by the PGA, Dad? Is this the right move at the right time for them?
Well, I think they definitely, there has to be a penalty for coming back. And right now, the PGA has the upper hand, right, on players that want to come back. Brooks Koepka wants to come back, wants to be closer to family. Unfortunately, his wife had a miscarriage. He said he wants to be closer to home. We know a lot of the LIV tournaments are out of the country, so he wants to be closer to home. He said LIV. He said he likes what LIV's idea is, especially team golf. He likes that, but he thought it would be further along than it is, so he wants to come back. And the PGA kind of holds the card. You mentioned some of the outline of it, that only a few players can come back, because normally if you want to come back, you have to sit for an entire year out of the PGA, but they're letting the better players come back, which is a smart move to have the better players on the tour. But what money is it costing them? Brooks Koepka is going to make a $5 million donation to charity. But as far as any other money that he has to give back, it's really going to be only what he could win. He's agreed to forfeit any player equity shares for the next 5 years. And also, he won't be eligible for the $100 million FedEx Cup bonus program in 2026. So basically, if he golfs well, it could cost him from earning an extra $50 to $85 million. But again, that's not coming out of his pocket. The $5 million donation is. And as you mentioned, these names got a ton of money to go play. So I think it's the PGA wanting the guys, the better players, back on tour immediately, but still knowing they have to publicly slap their wrist to let them come back.
Yeah, they're trying to land the knockout blow right now.
Yeah.
Like, the new leadership has come in and realized we got an opportunity as some of these deals are coming up, or as guys are realizing, hey, yeah, taking all this money is great, and they're going to have the benefit of that. It's why some players on the PGA Tour might be a little miffed that this is going on and that it seems like they're not being punished requisite with what they felt like was the crime at the time. But the PGA smartly realizes it's one of the oldest ideas in sports is, what coach said it, I'm going to treat you guys all fair, but fair ain't the same.
Right.
And that's, I think, the common sense that's prevailing here. Like, most people looked at this, and once you saw, hey, Brooks is leaving the LIV Tour, the thought was, well, yeah, get him on the PGA as soon as possible. If you're pro golf and you're riding a great wave, why not get more of the better players? And some of the other ones that would be eligible in these standards, John Rahm, Cameron Smith, Bryson DeChambeau, who before they went over to live behind the veil there, DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka was turning into one of the better budding rivalries in golf. And so I think this is the right move. I think it's a smart move. We'll see how effective it is in pressuring these other guys to come back, because what they've tried to do is create an arbitrary deadline. They said, hey, this window closes in February, and there's no guarantee it would open back up after that.
Right.
Even if I believe that if push came to shove and the opportunity presented itself again, they would understandably find a way to shoehorn one of these guys back into the PGA product. So I can't fault them for trying that. We'll see how effective it'll be for guys that aren't yet at the end of their contract, because the people backing the money over there aren't necessarily the ones I'd like to piss off if I were them in this process. But it's a heads-up play by the PGA, smelling blood and going for the kill.
Yep, completely agree. It'll be interesting what they do with the quote-unquote normal player, not a big name who wants to come back. Again, right now, it's a year you have to take off of the PGA. Will that change? Will they ease up on that while still making it penal to come back they've already set the standard for the better players, but what are they going to do if there's more of an exodus from LIV?
Yeah, I'd have to imagine they'll tell them to probably go pound sand and to enjoy their year off of the sport, because they are not one of the good players that they want back. It stinks as a member of the rank and file, but it's the reality that everyone is pretty aware of when they're honest with themselves about how this stuff works. We'll be honest about how this works. We got a great guest coming up that we're going to move along to now. Andrew Siciliano going to join us here, host of Yahoo Sports Inside coverage, radio play-by-play for the Cleveland Browns, and you'll catch him again in the Gold Zone for the Winter Olympics starting February 6th. That's got to be, I mean, Andrew, for all the fun that we have over here with football, I'd have to imagine the opportunity, and we've talked to you before about the Olympics, is just so unique and cool and different. I mean, what an insane honor.
What's up, guys? Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Yes, it is an insane honor. This is my fourth Olympics. We did the Gold Zone for Sochi. We did it for Rio. We obviously did it for Paris when it kind of blew up. On Peacock and streaming and all day, every day, and we're doing it again. We're getting the band back together for Milan. Hansen and Eisman and Jack Collinsworth and me, and I'm excited. Like, it's the bleeping Olympics. Yes, let's go.
What's more difficult, getting to know and understand some of the sports you don't normally cover, or getting all the freaking names right that you're going to have to pronounce?
Okay, so I'm not that concerned with the names. Famous last words, as I'm sure I'll screw up 10 of them on day one, because they have such an amazing, they meaning NBC, an amazing research staff, and like there's always somebody there helping you sound out names, and like the Spanish and the Italian, like those, and like even the Japanese, those names that are phonetic and make sense are easier for me. It's learning the stories and the backstories, and like these men and women have worked their entire lives for this moment. You want to make sure you honor this moment. Like Lindsey Vonn, probably her last moment. You want to make sure you tell the story the right way. She has a titanium knee. She's amazing, the greatest of all time. Whether it's Lindsey Vonn or some 16-year-old kid, like this is their moment. It might be their only moment. Like tell the story the right way.
No, and we have no doubt you will do just that. A good practice going through the NFL right now, considering there's a ton of stories that we get to here. And let's start with some of the fallout, because a lot of what we want to talk to you about is, head coaching job related, especially with the Browns, who you obviously cover and call games for. But this weekend, we saw a couple of coaches in the blender here. Matt LaFleur, his future seemed murky, although reports this morning they want to re-sign him. And then Nick Sirianni. Do you think there'd be real grounds for either organization to move on from their head coach after what you saw this weekend?
I don't think either's going to do it. I think they're very different. Listen, the Matt LaFleur thing, I think, comes down to money. If you're frustrated with him and you're upset always being the 7th seed and being one and done, that's fine. I will ask aloud, who are you going to get that's better? His deal is up. He's heading into the final year of his deal. What are they going to pay him? And if they can't come to an agreement, do you set him free? If that's the case, by the way, I will drive to Green Bay and then drive Matt to Cleveland if he wants to. I am happy to do that. carpool karaoke, however you want to do it. I'm happy to do it. He can control the radio. I'll just drive. I'm down for that. I think Sirianni is safe, honestly. I don't know about Kevin Patullo. I think the bigger question with the Eagles offense is, you guys know more football than I do. Is Jalen Hurts part of the problem? And if so, what do you do with that problem? You got 2 years and like $100 million in cash left. I don't think you could just rip it up and get out of it. But when A.J. Brown doesn't want to throw the quarterback under the bus, yet he says we can't throw a Band-Aid over everything and just, think it's going to get fixed magically in January. It didn't get fixed magically in January. Is there a bigger issue here?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, we keep saying this offense isn't complex enough, and they've had a lot of coordinators. Is it because Jalen Hurts can't handle a complex offense? So that's certainly a question that's going to need to be answered. Another question, a lot of head coaching jobs available out there, including, again, the radio voice of the Cleveland Browns. Where do you think this job falls in the openings, and what coaches do you think will be looking to fill the role?
So I would say, backing up, like big picture here, is it the best opening? Probably not. Is it the worst? Absolutely not. I think it's right in the middle, and I think that with the Browns' defense, it has to be an attractive job. Whether it's Myles Garrett or Carson Schlesinger or Mason Graham or Denzel Ward or Tyson Campbell. That was a find by Andrew Berry. Great trade midseason. I think they have pieces there. Grant Delpit. They were a top 5 defense last year. Who wouldn't want a top 5 defense? I think hanging over all of this is Jim Schwartz. The Browns would really like Jim Schwartz to come back as their DC. The fact that the Baltimore native is interviewing today with the Ravens is enough to get me anxious. But you're going to try, maybe, potentially here, to marry whomever you want as the head coach with an existing defensive coordinator. Now, I would want Jim Schwartz as my DC. I also wouldn't mind Jim Schwartz as my HC, as my head coach, but they're trying to thread a needle here. Like, we don't want to mess with one side of the ball. Is the new guy willing to deal, or work with, rather, deal is the wrong way to say it, with what we already have in place? Like, if you give me LaFleur and Schwartz, sign me up. You give me Harbaugh and Schwartz, would either want that? Sign me up. You may have to go with a younger offensive coordinator and say, hey, this is your defensive staff. Now, I think that would work. Would Schwartz be cool with that? I don't know, but there are certainly pieces after this last draft class by Andrew Berry that I think any head coach would want to work with.
Does that include quarterback, or is that still TBD?
I think quarterback is still TBD. Shedeur did a lot of good things this year, guys. He did a lot of good things. Did he do so many good things that you're like, nope, he's the guy. Here it is. We're going to toss you the keys, and we know that you're the guy. I don't think anyone can reasonably say that. I also want to say that it's hard to have a reasonable public conversation about Shedeur. He's a really good kid. He worked his tail off. His teammates like him. He made a lot of big plays. There's so much good. He's also a rookie quarterback where there's a lot that you want to work on. And that's what Andrew Berry said after the fact as well. I asked AB point blank on my ClevelandBrowns.com interview on Monday after Kevin had been fired, like, how does the quarterback affect your coaching search? And he said it's part of the conversation, but it isn't going to limit us. So it's not going to be a coaching search where it's like, hey, it's Shedeur or the highway. He's one of the quarterbacks in the building. He certainly has a leg up on the competition already because he started these 7 games, but in no way are they going to hand him the job.
Yeah, obviously a young quarterback looking to make his way. You have a few looking at the playoffs. You have a few young quarterbacks in Drake May and Caleb Williams and Bo Nix that are leading their teams in what seems. I'll ask you, how wide open is this playoff race this year compared to other years?
I think it's beyond wide open. Like, I mean, the Rams and the Seahawks are the best 2 teams in the NFL for my money. Beyond that, I have no clue. Like, I'll ask you guys, was this the greatest wild card weekend ever? Or are you like, none of these teams are really great? So we had a lot of close games that came down to the wire and back and forth, wild action into the fourth quarter. We were all highly entertained. But does this mean we have great teams?
I'm willing to put aside the great teams for the exciting play and just kind of hold my nose and hope that it gets better.
But I didn't hold my nose.
Right.
Maybe the Eagles offense held my nose a bit. The Chargers O-line of the Chargers offense, yes, I held my nose. They were good games. I was entertained. The 7 seed still is not going to win anything ever. But whatever. The ratings are great, and people are complaining about short rest next week. Get over it.
Yeah.
Yep, it sounds about right. Nature always finds its way through here. Andrew, before we let you go, we talked a little bit about the Browns opening and what people will be getting for that. What about the departing head coach, Kevin Stefanski? I think has kind of been lost in the John Harbaugh of this cycle now once that name was announced. But what is a team getting if they bring in Kevin Stefanski based on what you saw from him inside that building?
I think he's getting a guy that welcomes a reset, that welcomes a new challenge, and this is not in any way burying Cleveland. Quite the opposite. I think, he's ready for the next step and ready for the next challenge. He's certainly, his first 4 years with the Browns when they went 37-30, made the playoffs twice, actually won a playoff game. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Nick Sorensen, that's 15 yards at the end of the second quarter, beating the Chiefs, but they didn't. I'm not bitter at all. They're getting a good offensive mind and a very good head coach. Forget the awards. He has proven that he is a good head coach. 8 wins the last 2 years is not in any way going to cut it. He owns that. I think a reset for him is welcomed. I think he welcomes it, and I think he'll be a good coach at the next stop. I'd love to see him in Atlanta. You give him Drake London and Bijan Robinson and an offensive line again and a young defense with parts. You give him an owner who's willing to spend money and a fan base that probably cares more about UGA and isn't going to put too much pressure on him. Not that he's going to wilt under pressure. You get my point. I think that to me is the job that most coaches should want in this cycle.
Yeah, going to be fascinating. You're right. Probably not the first one out of everyone's mouth, but certainly a lot of advantages down there, not the least of which you just mentioned is the Go Dogs of it all here. Andrew, always great catching up with you, man. Happy New Year's. I think we're still inside the window for that to be an appropriate greeting or send. Well,
I'm willing to accept the good tidings and right back at you, but didn't we pass that Seinfeldian threshold already?
I think a week in. I think a week in we're done. So I do think we're past it. That's just
because I ended my pregame interview with Kevin last Sunday, Stefanski, by saying, I think we're right at the limit, but Happy New Year to you and good luck. And he looked at me as like, I think we're past it. But either way.
Well, first off, how dare you exchange pleasantries in a press setting as we learned this week?
No, this was a one-on-one interview in a hotel ballroom. Yes.
Andrew, always appreciate it, brother.
Did you guys really? I lost my cable again. This is the second time I've done this, guys.
Coming up next, with no end in sight to labor strife in the WNBA, how close are we to a lockout? Thank you to Andrew Siciliano, who always is great about joining us, giving us great insight, and unplugging his earpiece before the segment ends here. But thankfully, that gave us time to pivot to this, Dad. Important development going on in the WNBA right now. As we know, labor peace in our time has been the goal, and unfortunately a goal not met. The WNBA and the PA failed to agree to a new CBA or an extension of the previous one by the deadline of this last Friday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Both sides expected to continue negotiation at the impasse they're in right now, doing so on the terms of the old deal, not all that, dissimilar from what anyone with a contract who's in negotiations has done, where you kind of keep it going business as usual until things get really wild. No one from the league has said that they have any plans of locking the players out at this moment, sources told ESPN. So as someone that's been through this now, Dad, as someone who, as for years was a part of the NFLPA, has been through moments like this, what ends up becoming the most critical juncture of where we're at in this?
It's going to be how much does each side give, right? Everybody talks about how the players have the most leverage, but the players need to all stick together to have that leverage hammer. Every hand of a player needs to be on that hammer. Because again, when we struck in '87, we had the rich players end up crossing the picket line, at 4 weeks and just kind of left us holding the bag. You have to be together, and that's the hardest thing. Because there's a lot less owners than there are players. of owners sticking together as opposed to players sticking together. So that is the main thing. The numbers are the numbers. Listen, I don't pretend to know the numbers. The league is looking at 70% of the net. The players are looking for 30% of the growth. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say I know what those numbers are. I don't know what those numbers are. I have no idea. But the players who are representing and the league know what the numbers are. It's going to come down to who each side has to give. Again, the players have more leverage, but do you ask for things that you're not going to get? It's a fine line of getting as much as you can without trying to get the whole store. Because in any negotiation, the best negotiation is you feel you won, but you also don't feel you got everything that you got. And that's kind of what you have to accept.
And what that tweet from Ramona Shelburne there kind of highlighted is they're pretty far apart right now. So don't expect this to end anytime soon. Obviously, for the women of the W in terms of alternative outlets, they've always had the leagues overseas. Project B that's been talked about, the unrivaled season going on right now. And so there are alternative avenues for income that make the prospect of having to sit for a bit a little bit more palatable maybe for a smaller group that we've always talked about has always been good about the strength and numbers of it all. But I also think, not for nothing, the fact that the league said right now they've got no plans to lock them out, maybe telling that there's still time for something to get done on this. They've signed multiple extensions there, so we'll see.
Yeah, it just they say that you want to keep everything friendly now, but when it gets down to it, when camps are supposed to open, or if it goes past that, when the season's supposed to open, it gets real. It gets real when backs are really, really against the wall. What do you agree to on the other side so you don't have a lockout? Because if you have a lockout or a strike, it's going to get ugly, because you're right. They are about as far apart as can be right now because the women think this is the time to strike. But again, with personal experience with this, players, you have to stick together.
And it seems like they will. And I still think it behooves everyone involved to keep things going with the W at a time where they've got all of this positive momentum. So we'll see if that's possible. As we proceed, coming up next, Drew Bledsoe going to stop by and talk about the quarterback development we've seen from some of these bright young stars through the wild card round next. Some of what we've seen so far through the postseason, wildcard weekend, almost done. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here with you on Golic and Golic. And I do think that's been one of the interesting subplots. While we spent a lot of time focusing on the losers, what comes next for them, compelling young quarterbacks like the Caleb Williams that you saw in Soldier Field. Quite honestly, Jordan Love, his counterpart, who maybe isn't considered young anymore, but we know sat so much at the beginning of his career. Bryce Young with the Panthers, Drake May with the New England Patriots. Which young quarterback came away in your mind improving their stock the most this weekend?
I think Caleb Williams, because I think the Bears are ahead of schedule. Now, it could probably say that about New England as well, but you have a veteran coach in Mike Vrabel and a very solid team offensively and defensively. But, you know, as far as young quarterbacks, again, we have 3 second-year quarterbacks, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. Two played, Drake May, and obviously in Caleb Williams. The throws, that it still blows my mind that Caleb Williams has the worst completion percentage among qualified quarterbacks, but makes some of the most spectacular plays in staying alive. It is truly, truly amazing. So I would definitely look at one of the young quarterbacks, because we know what Josh Allen could do. We know what Matthew Stafford can do. Brock Purdy, very efficient, but get the ball to Christian McCaffrey. That's kind of what you got to do.
Yeah, don't worry. In addition to being dead last among qualified quarterbacks in completion percentage, if you want to look deeper into the analytics of it, he's also dead last among the NFL's quarterbacks, the 33 qualified, in completion percentage over expected. So what's expected versus what you get. And I don't know, Dad, with all the success that they've still had, the fact that he was a stone throw away from being the first Bears quarterback in franchise history to pass for 4,000 yards, and the fact that some of the heroics were enough to lift them in this playoff win, does it maybe challenge us to think outside of that number a little bit and say, all right, hey, completion percentage, while it's one of the metrics that we measure success for in these quarterbacks, and certainly accuracy is important, if he's got the ability to hit this consistently on some of these big plays, is that not something that, especially while he's a young player, can serve to offset in a way that maybe makes that less of a sticking point?
Oh, without question. Without question. Listen, remember, Eli Manning came into the league. He was not good in completion percentage, and has worked out all right for him. To me, the biggest, the most exciting feather in the cap is his escapability in making big plays. It's amazing. But to me, the best thing about him in 2 years, 47 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Single-digit interceptions his first 2 years in the league. So I'd rather have an incomplete pass than an interception any day of the week. So, yes, he definitely makes up for it in other ways. Now, having the third-ranked rushing attack in the league helps. Definitely helps. And a turnover-heavy defense helps. But the bottom line is he does not turn the ball over, and that, to me, is the biggest feather in his cap.
I think it's going to be interesting, and I saw Ben Solak made this comp in terms of the overall ability, the arm talent, the escapability for a quarterback. But I also think something to kind of keep in mind or remember when it comes to the conversation around consistent accuracy is Josh Allen. Like, I know we haven't always thought or talked about Caleb in this regard because he played at USC, he won the Heisman Trophy. Like, he was not by any means a raw prospect coming out of college in a lot of ways. But coming to this level in terms of the skill set and his best use right now versus what he can become and having Ben Johnson as the guy. You've talked about it a few times on the show today, Dad. With NFL head coaches, if you are the offensive play caller, life's good. But if you're someone constantly searching, it can get messy. Until further notice, especially if they continue this kind of team success, Caleb Williams is going to have the same voice in his ear consistently now through these pivotal years into year 3, 4, 5, and beyond for him as a quarterback. Who's to say if you would rather start with the baseline ability he's got now and with this kind of developer whittle away at that consistency problem with completion percentage? I think it's the perfect storm for Chicago.
Oh, I completely agree. And also Ben Johnson came in and he didn't like coddle the former number one pick, right? Didn't treat him like he was on a pedestal. I mean, Caleb Williams even said in the beginning, he goes, I didn't think Ben Johnson liked me the way I was being treated. And then again, Ben Johnson saying publicly, we're winning in spite of our passing game. This dude is hard on players, right? But hard on the quarterback, which again is something he's known for, is obviously coaching the quarterback. And he was coaching a veteran in Jared Goff in Detroit. But yeah, he is certainly working Caleb Williams.
Fascinating to think about the development of quarterbacks in this league always. For more on that, let's talk to a formerly very successful quarterback in that league. Drew Bledsoe, kind enough to join us right now, former NFL quarterback and Super Bowl champion, and one of the guys that was a top overall player that knows what Caleb Williams is going through. So, Drew, we always appreciate the time and would love to start there with Caleb Williams. People pointing out, understandably, the completion percentage numbers are low, but how do you evaluate a young player like him and where he's at after this season?
Yeah, he's, first of all, he's really fun to watch. I mean, let's just start there, right? So, I mean, it's good television, right? But the guy is remarkably talented. His escapability, his arm talent, and you can see that when he was playing in college at SC. The challenge sometimes, and this is something that I had to kind of try to conquer when I was young, is if you have good arm talent, there's a tendency to always want to make the big play rather than just take the check down, take the easy throw. And so that's where you see maybe a lower completion percentage than maybe some people would like. But it's also, there's some great benefits that come with that. You come back from way behind, really kind of, he put on his cape at the end of that game and came back and did it. But I think that would be what, if I were going to point to one thing in Caleb's progression, it would be that. Go ahead and take the easy plays for a while. Watch what Patrick Mahomes has done the last few years, and I know they're out of the playoffs now, but when you would watch Pat, he wasn't always making the amazing play. He was taking the easy throws, early in games, and then when it was time to, win the game at the end, then he could turn into Superman and then go win it for you. But that would be the next step. I would say that we should expect in Caleb's progression is take some of the easy stuff early.
How hard you were the number one pick overall, Caleb was. How hard were you coached? Like we said, Ben Johnson has been tough on him. How tough were the coaches on you when you first got in the league?
Oh, you mean Bill Parcells? Yeah, he was just all rainbows and unicorns. Yeah.
I'd let you answer that.
Yeah, Parcells was such an asshole that I just the only positive was that I looked forward to game day because he had to be at least 30 yards away from me. He would literally stand behind me during practice. We're in team drill. I would drop back, and Parcells would be standing like 2 yards behind me after I dropped back, and he would yell in my ear, "Throw it, throw it, throw it, throw it." So I mean, it's like you're trying to hit a golf ball and you have somebody screaming in your ear. So, that's I think coddling the young quarterback was certainly not what I experienced, and I think if you're going to play quarterback in this league, particularly as a high draft pick with all that comes with that, man, you better have some mental and emotional toughness. Otherwise, you're going to wash out really, really quickly. So I think there's some benefit to having a guy that's hard on you in practice.
One guy who certainly hasn't washed out quickly is Justin Herbert. Been doing this for a while now. Him and Jim Harbaugh, back-to-back years, finding their way to being a highly competitive team, a playoff team here this year. But now 0-3 in his playoff career. Wins aren't a quarterback stat, but how much are we to look into that now with that 3-game sample size at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I am so excited to watch Justin Herbert play with 2 healthy offensive tackles one of these years. What he was able to do this year, with really kind of a makeshift offensive line actually was really remarkable. I know he's not going to get any, much MVP, noise, but when you look at what he had to take on within that team, where you're not getting the protection you would expect. He had to work with his legs, and boy, he took so much punishment this year and just kept fighting. So I have a lot of respect for what Justin Herbert was able to do this year, and I'm just really looking forward to one of these years when he actually gets to play with an entirely healthy offensive line. I think he can really light the league on fire if he finally gets to do that.
We always talk about Josh Allen and putting the cape on to carry this team. Can he be asked to do too much?
Honestly, when I look at Josh, and obviously I'm a huge Josh Allen fan, man. I mean, how can you not be, right, man? The way the guy plays the game. But that's been my question really since he started his ascendance into the league, is how long can his body handle this, right? Because he's throwing it around there, man. I did notice he did slide in the game, which I thought was kind of a new phenomenon for Josh. But he takes some hits, and he's been able to stay healthy so far. And so I do think with James Cook, they are taking some of the pressure off of him. They've run the ball a lot better this year. If he can, I'll be just curious to see how long he can play this way and still not break down. At some point, he may have to be, take Steve Young's advice and function from the pocket first, and then only run it when he has to. Man, huge fan of watching him play, and I really hope his body holds up.
It's been incredible to watch. We know he's got the golden opportunity everyone talks about without some of the usual suspects in the postseason here, but we know still wasn't even the top quarterback or winning quarterback in his own division. That was Drake May and the Patriots who got it back. They got the schedule merchant label on them a lot this year. They get to the playoffs. They get a win against the Chargers. Did you see anything that you hadn't seen in the regular season from Drake and this Patriots team, or is the jury still out?
No, man, I think they're looking really good. And, and it's funny because I hear a lot about the Patriots. They haven't played anybody, but man, when you think about the NFL, everybody's good, right? I mean, we know that from when we played, Mike, it's like, the worst team in the NFL can beat the best team in the NFL on any given Sunday, like they say. And so, yeah, maybe their record wasn't as strong as or was the weakest in the league, I guess. But they're still beating teams, and they're beating them, fairly convincingly. They're playing great defense. Drake May is really special. They've got a lot of components. Now, I don't know if they can take it all the way this year. But boy, they're really showing some signs of being a team that's here to stay for a while.
As far as being a quarterback in the playoffs, do you put more pressure on yourself to make a big play knowing that if you lose, the season's over?
The intensity goes up, certainly. But the bigger thing that's magnified in the playoffs are the mistakes. Your margin for error. So, it's that fine line that quarterbacks have to walk all the time where, when do you take the chance to try to make the big play, and when do you try to make sure that you don't harm your team first? Turnovers in the playoffs and negative plays in the playoffs, man, they can just be so detrimental to your team. And so it's that same juggling act you have to walk as a quarterback all the time, where you're trying to help your team as much as you can, but it's in many cases more important that you don't make the big mistake. Especially if you're on a playoff caliber team where you're going to be in these games, because you're on a good team. If you take the attitude that, okay, I got to make sure I don't screw it up first, then you're going to be in position to win these games at the end.
A quarterback who certainly won the final game and had his team in plenty of positions. Jalen Hurts this past weekend. The Eagles lose to the 49ers. Lots of conversation around Kevin Patullo, their offensive coordinator, but how much of the blame for how that offense functioned, especially the passing offense, does fall at the feet of Jalen Hurts?
I didn't get to watch that game very close last night. I was at an event, so I just was kind of watching in the background, so I didn't get to study it up on it too much. I think one of the craziest stats though with Jalen Hurts is I think he's had a different offensive coordinator like 8 or 9 straight years, going all the way back to college. I had 8 coordinators in my 14 years, and when you're changing offensive coordinators all the time, that's a really hard thing to continually adjust to, and so. I would really like to see Jalen have some stability from that standpoint, where you have the same voice in your headset, week in and week out, year in and year out, and really develop that camaraderie, with an offensive coordinator. I will say in that game though, man, hats off to the Niners and their team and their coaching staff. Robert Saleh on the defensive side of the ball with his 2 best defensive players out, and they are still finding a way to get it done. So, those guys have really done a truly remarkable job managing through all the injuries they've had with the Niners this year and have them into the second round of the playoffs.
No question. Incredibly impressive job by that team and coaching staff and the way they've been able to MacGyver their way through all this. Drew, whenever we have you on, we love talking a little bit of wine on the way out. Anyone unfamiliar, check out the Bledsoe family wine estates. Always phenomenal stuff there. What's the perfect bottle that pairs with watching the end of Wild Card Weekend tonight on Monday Night Football?
Oh, man. Tonight, I think Mama's making me some dinner. I don't know what we're having yet, so I might withhold my bottle choice until we find out what's on the table, but I'll probably drink some Pinot, and then if that goes well, then maybe a little Cabernet, for the main course. It's a long game. You probably need at least 2 bottles of wine.
There you go. Hey, you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and that is never a doubt with the Bledsoe Wine Estates. Drew, always a pleasure, man. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Great to talk to you guys always. Keep in touch.
Thanks, Drew.
Absolutely.
I always have an interesting time talking with Drew, because he was the last game. He was a quarterback for the last game I played in the NFL, January 2nd, 1993. We had a winning season, and then Dan Marino went down, and we lost every game after Dan went down. We had to win the last game to make the playoffs. We were in Foxborough, and Drew Bledsoe went 27 of 43, 329, 4 touchdowns, beat us in overtime. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was my last NFL game, and Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback.
I think the worst part about it is he didn't seem to know or care when you brought that up to him last time. And that kind of hurt me, hearing the lack of complete disregard for your career that he ended that day. So we'll have our revenge on Drew Bledsoe at some point on your behalf.
I did weep a little bit after that interview when he didn't acknowledge it at all. I did cry.
If you hear reports of my father form tackling Drew Bledsoe in a winery somewhere in the next couple of years, you'll know why, and you'll know exactly why revenge had to be exacted here. More quarterback news, by the way, as we dip back down to the college ranks here. We already mentioned that Dylan Raiola committed to the Oregon Ducks today. LSU, according to Pete Thamel, is expected to sign ASU transfer quarterback Sam Leavitt, who is considered the number 2 quarterback in the portal and the top uncommitted player left in ESPN's rankings. Now, he had taken visits to Miami, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And according to reports from CBS Sports, Tennessee still hasn't given up hope yet with Sam Leavitt's been pushing in hopes to try and remain in consideration there. But all signs right now pointing to Sam Leavitt at LSU here. Extremely productive player at ASU, and one of the many incoming transfers for this first class under Lane Kiffin. Dad, from what you've seen with Sam Leavitt, from what we know about the situation right now here for Lane Kiffin at LSU, how big of an impact do you think he can make early for a huge year one for Lane Kiffin?
Well, 2 years ago, he was fantastic when him and Cam Scadaboo, when the Pac-12 had the bye, the Big 12, Pac-12, geez.
Yeah.
And had the bye, got hurt last year, didn't have the greatest season before he got hurt. One thing that works in his favor, he's playing for maybe the best offensive coordinator in college football, right? And Charlie Weiss Jr. So Charlie will get the most out of him. What that is, I'm not completely sold on, but we'll see. I don't know if Leavitt was their first target in the portal, but it's who they have.
It's who they have. An incredibly talented player. And like you said, on his best day was the quarterback of a team that almost upset Texas in the first round of the college football playoff 2 years ago, and just, injured at the wrong times this year. Unfortunately, didn't get to see it all the way through with Arizona, but did author the upset win against Texas Tech. They were the only team in the regular season to beat the Red Raiders in that way, and did it because of Sam Leavitt's incredible playmaking ability. So he brings that much out of structure to LSU. We'll see what Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane can do in structure. Ty Simpson still hanging out there, by the way, declared for the NFL draft, but reportedly fielding offers for as much as $6.5 million. As I look at this game of quarterback musical chairs and ask who next year's Miami Hurricanes quarterback is, knowing seventh-year Carson Beck going to be going on. So plenty to keep an eye out still, as it seems like LSU may finally get to rest knowing they've got their guy. Thanks for watching. For more Golic and Golic clips, make sure you subscribe to the FanDuel Sports Network YouTube channel.